Good evening and welcome. I'm Mamta Rawat from the Corporate Communications team of CareEdge. I welcome you to our discussion today on Indian Pharma Industry, Formulating Resilient Growth. We sincerely appreciate your time in joining us for this webinar. We would like to welcome our esteemed guest speakers for today. Mr. Ravi Kumar, Executive Director and CFO at Loris Labs Limited. Mr. Arvind Agrawal, CFO at Ajanta Pharma Limited. Mr. Jignesh Purohit, Senior GM and Head of Treasury at Alchem Laboratories Limited. This session will be moderated by Krunal Modi, Director at CareEdge Ratings. We will commence this session with the presentation by D Naveen Kumar, Associate Director at CareEdge Ratings. This will be followed by a panel discussion and a Q&A session. In case of queries, participants are requested to key into your panel. We will take up your queries at the end of the discussion. Now, may I invite Naveen to make the presentation?
Thank you, Mamta. Good evening to one and all. I'll be taking you through the presentation. So today's key points of discussions are as follows. Overview of Indian pharmaceutical industry and outlook, key growth drivers for domestic and export markets, CDMO opportunities supported by Biosecure Act, dependence on the China for bulk drugs, trend analysis of the severity of regulatory audit and observations, and our track record, key aggregate financial metrics for the pharmaceutical industry, CareEdge ratings coverage for the pharmaceutical industry, including rating dispersion. Now let's begin the presentation with the bird's eye view of the pharmaceutical industry. The Indian pharmaceutical industry commands a significant global presence, particularly in generic segment, where it ranks as the third largest by volume and 13th by value. Over the period from FY18 to FY24, the industry encompassing both domestic and exports demonstrated a CAGR of about 7.5%. This growth was driven by an 8% increase in the exports and a 7% increase in the domestic market during the same period. The Indian pharma industry has grown from $35.4 billion from FY18 to $54 billion to FY24 and is likely to reach about $70 billion in FY27 with expected CAGR of about 9%. Globally, Indian pharma industry has a strong footprint in generic segment. The pharma exports and domestic market contribute almost equally to the overall pharma industry. In the next slide, in this slide, we shall be discussing from where the major growth to pharma industry has come from during the last 5 to 6 years, and what would be the growth rate during the next 2 to 3 years. The Indian pharma industry has shown a commendable CAGR of about 8% between FY18 to FY27, the domestic market expanding by 7%, whereas exports by about 8%. FY24 was particularly strong, with domestic sector growing by 9% and the exports growing by about 10%. Several factors contributed for the domestic market's 9% growth in FY24. There was a notable rise in demand for both acute and chronic segments. The revision in the prices adopted by the pharma companies, which is allowed by the NPPA to the extent of about 4 to 5%, positively impacted the overall revenue growth. Then there was a launch of new products also played an important role, which has driven the growth by about 2 to 3%. And therapeutics such as cardiac conditions, diabetes, CNS segments experienced about 10% year-on-year growth. With other therapeutic areas such as the anti-diabetics and anti-infectives also played an important role. Apart from above, about 2 to 3% was due to rise in the demand from the existing therapies. What actually is driving the growth of the pharma exports will be discussed in detail in coming slides. However, just to give an overview, it comes from the exports, wherein the increased focus on the synthesis segment, complex and specialty products, apart from easing of the pricing pressures in the US generics and brighter prospects from this CRAM segment, are likely to support the growth in the medium term. Increasing access to healthcare shall also drive the higher growth in the emerging markets. Thus, overall exports as per CareEdge is expected to improve by about 9 to 10%. Similarly, the growth of our domestic market going forward is expected to be majorly supported by further revision of prices and increase in demand for the chronic segment, thus leading the growth by about 8 to 9%. Further, overall CareEdge estimates that by FY27, domestic formulations to contribute about 49%, which you can see on the right-hand side of the chart, while formulations from regulated markets will contribute about 24%, and pharma emerging markets about 17%, and rest will be contributed by the API exports. Now let's see what is driving domestic consumption in the next slide. The domestic pharma consumption grew at a CAGR of about 7% during last 6 years and 9% during FY24, reaching to about $26.58 billion. Several factors contributed to domestic markets 9% growth, which we already discussed recently in earlier slide. Now going forward, the domestic pharma consumption is expected to grow at a pace of about 8 to 9% during the next 3 years, that is till FY27. And this will be primarily driven by growing healthcare awareness. First thing. Second thing is from the penetration of the healthcare insurance. And third thing is the growing lifestyle-related diseases such as diabetes, cardiac, and GID-related things, and increasing government spending under the Ayushman Bharat scheme. In this backdrop, let us discuss which therapeutic segments are contributing the highest in next slide. From this slide, we can infer that the 4 therapeutic segments, that is anti-infectives, cardiac, GIT, and anti-diabetic, almost contribute about 50%, while the rest of the therapeutic segments contribute remaining 50%. As discussed earlier, the cardiac, GIT, and anti-diabetic segments has exhibited healthy growth rate on account of aging population and lifestyle-related diseases. The growth was almost around 10 to 11%. Although in global market, oncology contributes the highest share, in India, the contribution of the same is about 2%. However, this segment over a period of the time has exhibited significant growth. As we have discussed considerably in detail with respect to domestic markets, now let's move forward to discuss about export markets. The exports of the pharmaceutical products, both to regulated and pharma emerging, are expected to rise gradually. CareEdge expects India's pharma export to grow by around 9 to 10% during the next 3 years till FY27, with major contribution coming from the generic formulations. Indian pharma companies are one of the most cost-competitive producers of generic formulations. Changing world demography, wherein we observe a large number of population, that is 30 to 35% of population, is expected to fall in the range of 50 to 70 years, combined with lifestyle-related diseases, would benefit the growth of the industry. Further, with greater focus by the top 20 pharma companies of India on R&D of complex and specialty drugs, CDMO and biosimilar products are expected to drive the export growth. Now coming to the specific reasons, CareEdge expects that the growth in the formulations, especially the regulated markets, will be driven by the two primary factors. The first one being new product launches in the complex generics, specialty chemicals, and products which are going to go off patent. And second one is that abating of the pricing pressure, which is expected to drive the growth all put together by about 10%. While the growth in the pharma emerging formulation markets is expected on account of increase in generic penetration, launch of new products, depreciating currency, however, the growth prospects also depend upon availability of the forex reserves. Nevertheless, exploration of the new markets is also expected to drive growth for the pharma emerging formulations by about 8%. Now coming to bulk drugs, revival of the exports from the China or launch of price war by the Chinese bulk drug companies can significantly impose the downside risk for the Indian bulk drug industry, at least in medium term. Nevertheless, CareEdge expects that the shift in the contract manufacturing by the global pharma players and the China placement strategy adopted by them for the sourcing of the bulk drugs for the branded generics in regulated markets would benefit the industry in the medium term, thus leading the growth by about 4 to 5% by FY27. Now continuing with the topic on the exports, let's discuss the role of US market in the Indian pharma industry, especially in the exports industry. In this slide, we shall be discussing about the specific market which is expected to drive the export growth. Across the globe, US contributes about 40 to 45% of the pharma share, which is significantly higher. Thus, when it comes to exports, the presence of the US markets play out a critical role. As we see from the bottom left side pie chart, that is 38% of the total export has been garnered from the US market, followed by the UK and South Africa. Exports showed robust growth, especially in the North America market, which comprises about 41% of the total Indian pharmaceutical exports. After witnessing significant pricing pressures post-COVID-19 up to FY23, the region saw a turnaround with a growth rate of approximately 13% in FY24. Contributing factors included the easing of the pricing pressures, revitalization of the biotech funding, the launch of specialty products, and deeper penetration in the generic markets. European, African, and Asian markets reported growth rates between 7 to 8.5% during FY24. Overall exports grew by 10% in FY24, with regulated markets contributing 11% growth, whereas semi and unregulated markets contributed growth of about 7%. The right side bar chart depicts the trend in the pharma exports during FY17 to FY24. During FY17 and FY18, the industry has exhibited muted growth on account of some of the major reasons, such as significant regulatory headwinds faced by the Indian pharma companies, and this was combined with shutdown of the industry in China to comply with their pollution norms, which has led to the considerable shortage of KSMs and the bulk drugs. Nevertheless, the formulation exports have shown consistent growth, reporting a CAGR of about 8%, while bulk drug exports have reported CAGR of about 5% during FY17 to FY24. As we understand that one of the main factors that is going to drive the export growth is exploitation of the opportunity presented by the patent expiries. Let us discuss about the same in the next slide. Patent expiry allows the generic drugs to penetrate a market. Over next 2 to 3 years till 2026, the patented products worth $125 billion are expected to go off patent. This provides a large opportunity to Indian generic formulation players. Many of the Indian companies are already working to develop the generic versions of the patented products to seize the upcoming opportunity. It is expected that the Indian pharma companies may get around $3.5 to $4 billion of opportunity due to the patent expiry next 2 to 3 years. CareEdge has also mentioned some of the drugs which are going to go off patent during the current year and the next 2 years, along with the current market share and the name of the companies aiming to exploit the opportunity. Now moving on to the next slide, where we are going to discuss about impact of Biosecure Act and about the CDMO business. Discovery and development of the new drug is a lengthy and a complex process, generally involving about 10 to 15 years of the time, with investments running into billions of dollars, which is somewhere about $4 to $5 billion. More than ever, the innovator companies are looking for the partners across the pharmaceutical value chain to encourage innovation, optimize the cost, enhance efficiency, flexibility, and productivity through the various stages of drug discovery or development. Now, Indian CRAMS players offer a complete end-to-end solution, such as right from the drug discovery and the preclinical studies to drug development and manufacturing. The segment has grown over time from simple molecule research and manufacturing to manufacturing of complex molecules requiring high-end research. The presence of the large talent pool, large globally accredited plants, strong adherence to IPRs, efficient and reliable delivery timelines, China Plus One policy, low cost and deep research acumen has made the India's preferred destination for global pharma innovators. Now coming to the passage of the Biosecure Act by US government, CareEdge believes that Indian pharma companies operating in the CDMO and CRO segments are likely to reap benefits from increased orders from US pharma companies over the next 12 to 18 months. Indian companies in anticipation have incurred significant capex over the past 2 years as a matter of preparedness to exploit the opportunity. CareEdge further expressed that there will be reorientation of the supply chains given the restrictions on the US federal agencies procuring the services from certain biotechnology companies, primarily large Chinese pharma players. Consequently, the supply of the numerous drugs used in the clinical trials and also clinical raw materials to be impacted concern the business that most innovator companies have with these Chinese players. This would provide opportunities for Indian companies to act as alternatives. The industry has already witnessed favorable headwinds, wherein the listed pharma companies have started receiving several inquiries from sourcing of the raw materials from the innovator companies. Traditionally, the CDMO has reported growth of about 10%, forming about 10 to 15% of the Indian pharmaceutical industry, which is about $5 to $8 billion. However, concerning the above development, the neutral perspective, the industry is expected to reach about $7 to $11 billion. And take an optimistic view, which we have mentioned it down, it is growing. It is expected to grow about 18%. The industry is expected to reach to about $9 to $13 billion. Now moving on to the next slide, where we propose to discuss about the ANDA. Earlier, we have mentioned that one of the major driver for the growth in export market is launch of the new products. The current slide presents the details with respect to number of ANDA approvals granted by the US FDA for the Indian pharma companies during last 6 to 7 years. And it's observed that out of the total ANDA approvals granted by US FDA across the globe, Indian pharma companies contribute 48% with more than 350 approvals during calendar year 22 and 23. With about 400 USFDA approved plants and strong ANDA pipeline to be launched, it is expected that India will lead the patent cliff opportunity in US, maintain the growth momentum to about 10% going forward. While commercialization of the ANDA approach is critical, more critical factor is compliance with the regulatory standards set by the regulatory authorities. In next slide, let's discuss where Indian pharma companies stands with respect to regulatory compliances. Here we'll discuss about the regulatory risk. With increasing presence in developed markets like USA, the regulatory risk remains a critical monitorable. Globally, over 1,425 pharmaceutical facilities have received the US FDA approval. Leading this count, India has got 396 approved plants, surpassing US, which has got about 342 plants which are approved by US FDA. Followed by the China, which has got 189, Italy has got 82, Germany has got 53, Spain 44, and Canada 37. The COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing travel restrictions led to the significant drop in the number of inspections conducted by US FDA during calendar year 21 and 22. However, with the easing of these restrictions, there has been a resurgence in the number of inspections by US FDA. The US FDA's inspection of India manufacturing companies has doubled in calendar 2023 compared to that of calendar 14. This surge in inspection was accompanied by a rise in the supply of drugs to US market by Indian companies. Following an inspection, the US FDA generally documents it in the form of the Form 483 and communicates these findings to the entities involved. Generally, these observations fall under one of these three categories that is called no action initiated, official action initiated, and voluntary action initiated. No action, voluntary action are can be correctable, but no, whereas official action initiated is quite severe. Over time, there has been a decreasing trend in terms of the issuance of OIE observations by US FDA as a percentage of inspection of its approved manufacturing facilities in India. The same stood at 10% in 2023 compared to 17% in 2017. This indicates a reduction in serious nature of regulatory actions recommended by US FDA, leading to a faster rate of product filings and approvals. Rising instances of audit observations by US FDA impacts the compliance cost and in turn hurts the profitability of the pharma sector. Any adverse observation from the regulatory authorities can also lead to delay in launch of the new products or may even impact the current revenue stream, thus denting its prospects at least for the medium term. The ability of the Indian pharma companies to successfully sail through the inspections carried out by the regulatory authorities would be critical in determining their future growth plans and also the profitability margins. The number of warning letters issued by US FDA for the Indian pharma units has significantly reduced from 22 during 2019 to 4 and 10 during 2022 and 23, respectively. Further, it is observed that the number of large pharma companies with turnover of more than 1,000 crores has also reduced significantly from 9 to 3 during 2019 to 2022 and has remained at the similar level. However, it is found that the large pharma companies are also hedging themselves through site transfer wherever regulatory issues are present and filing of ANDA from two sides, which mitigates regulatory risk to some extent. CareEdge opines that the Indian pharma companies over the period of time have strengthened their internal regulatory standards matching to the growing compliance needs of the regulated markets. While regulatory compliance is an important factor, another important and critical factor is sourcing of the raw material. India continues to rely heavily on China for bulk drugs, which we shall discuss in the next slide. Out of the total pharma imports, bulk drugs on an average contribute about 55%, while 30 to 35% is contributed to formulations and remaining is by others. While import of the other pharmaceutical products are diversified across multiple countries, the reliance on the China for the bulk drug stands out critical point of vulnerability. The contribution of the bulk drug imports from the China has exhibited significant growth in both value and also in terms of the volume. In terms of the value, it has increased from 67% during FY17 to 72% during FY24. Notably, the bulk drugs have grown at a CAGR of 8% in terms of the value from FY14 to FY24, but the same import of the bulk drug from the China has grown by 9%. The implication of such reliance on the China for the bulk drugs are far-reaching, particularly for life-saving drugs, where the dependency on the KSMs from the China exceeds 50%. This situation raises legitimate concerns about the availability, cost, and uninterrupted supply of the crucial medicines in India healthcare landscape. As per CareEdge analysis, the vulnerabilities that the industry is exposed due to dependence on the China are three. First one is that low bargaining power in relationship with Chinese companies, leading to industry being susceptible to adverse price movement of raw materials. Second one is that unpredictable events such as recent pandemic or wars, etc., can adversely impact the supply chain. And third one is that weakening interest in domestic bulk drug manufacturers due to weak ROC, return on capital employed. In order to address and lower this high import dependency from China, the Indian governments have introduced PLI Scheme 1 and 2. In response to those schemes during FY24, the total project completions in the drugs and pharmaceutical industries were around $500 million, which is the highest registered during the last decade. Further, amongst the project completions, one specific project which has been set up for the Penicillin G manufacturing plant, which is located at Kakinada, Andhra Pradesh, alone contributes to $244 million. For Penicillin G, India depends almost 90 to 100%, and as the project is already commercialized, it is going to bring down the dependency for this particular product to a great extent. In light of the projects completed during FY23 and FY24 and the estimated projects to be completed during FY25 under PLI scheme, CareEdge anticipates a positive impact to the reduced reliance on the imports from China. By end of FY25, it is estimated that the dependency on the China imports is expected to decrease to about 69%. Further, as major projects become operationalized during Q4 FY25 and additional projects are set to commence during FY26, this reliance is further projected to reduce to about 65%. Although a positive development, it is worth noting that the dependency will still remain at the relatively high level. During the next 3 slides, that is during the next 3 years, that is from FY25 to FY27, the Indian pharma industry is expected to grow by about 9 to 10% that we have seen in previous slides. This growth will lead to the incremental requirements for APIs again, which are expected to be met through enhanced capacities under PLI schemes. As a result, the overall dependency on the import of the bulk drug from China is likely to continue high over 60%. Going to the next slide. This slide depicts the industry aggregate of the top 50, both listed and unlisted pharma entities that contribute almost about 85 to 90% of the Indian pharma industry. Here we can observe clearly how the increase in the operating cost has dented the profitability margins during FY23. However, with softening of the raw material prices and also freight costs, the margins have bounced back to 21.5% in FY24. Further, with growing presence in the complex and specialty drugs, exploiting the opportunities presented by the CRAMS, CareEdge expects the operating margins to expand by about 50 to 100 basis points by FY26. The chart on the right-hand side depicts the expected movement of the operating margins for next 2 years in formulations and API segments for the both players, which is expected to expand by about 100 to 150 basis points. Going to the next slide, where we are going to discuss about the credit metrics. The chart on the left-hand side depicts the debt metrics of the listed pharma entities, wherein it can be observed that the balance sheets are generally low leverage, with debt to EBITDA remaining comfortable below 1x times, and interest coverage remains healthy at over 10 times. The chart on right-hand side presents the overall working capital cycle, which is expected to remain stable at about 130 days going forward. Coming to the last slide of the presentation, in terms of the overall coverage, CareEdge rated pharma portfolio comprises of more than 100 companies, and in terms of the market size, the same forms about 50%. The first pie chart infers the formulation entities form 70% of the total rated debt, followed by the bulk drugs forming 19%. In terms of sectoral spread, the rated portfolio encompasses the entire value chain, that is, bulk drugs, formulations, CROs, CDMOs, biosimilars, and others. Out of the total rated debt, 84% of the debt falls under investment grade, which is present in the middle pie chart. Further, 76% of the rated debt are in the higher investment grade category of A and above, while 84% of the entire portfolio is in investment grade. So with this, we would come to a conclusion of the presentation, and I hand over the session to Mamta back.
Thank you, Naveen. Attendees are requested to key in their questions, which we will take up after our panel discussion. Now, may I invite Krunal Modi to take over the session, please. Krunal is director at CareEdge, bringing over 15 years of extensive experience in credit ratings across a diverse range of sectors, including pharmaceuticals, textiles, chemicals, agro, and automobiles. As a seasoned professional, Krunal has demonstrated exceptional expertise and leadership in the field. He is a chartered accountant and holds an MBA from Gujarat University. Over to you, Krunal.
So thank you so much, Mamta. Good evening and very warm welcome to everyone. First of all, I would like to extend my gratitude to Naveen for his excellent presentation. And now I'm honored to introduce our three distinguished panelists who have taken their time out to join us on this webinar to share their views. Our first panelist is Mr. Ravi Kumar, the Executive Director and CFO of Laurus Laboratories Limited. Mr. Kumar has been associated with Laurus Lab since 2006, and he is instrumental in executing the core strategies of the company. Before joining Laurus Lab, he was associated with Matrix Laboratory, which was later acquired by Mylan Laboratories. With over 30 years of experience, he holds both bachelor and master degree in commerce from Andhra University and is a fellow member of Institute of Cost Accountant of India. Good evening, Mr. Kumar, and warm welcome to our webinar.
Good evening and thank you.
Our next speaker we have with us is Mr. Arvind Agrawal, the CFO, Ajanta Pharma Limited. Mr. Agrawal is a chartered accountant with more than 35 years of experience in the various corporate functions. He began his career with IDBI Bank, one of the leading financial institutions in the country at that point of time. He has been with Ajanta Pharma for over 25 years. Good evening, Mr. Agrawal, and very warm welcome to webinar. So you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. Thank you very much.
Our final panelist today is Mr. Jignesh Purohit, Senior General Manager and Head Treasury at Alchem Laboratories Limited. Mr. Purohit is a chartered accountant with over 12 years of experience in finance and treasury. He also completed his emerging CFO executive course from IIM Indore. Prior to joining Alchem Laboratory, he worked with Lupin Limited. Good evening, Mr. Purohit, and warm welcome to webinar.
Good evening, Kunal, and thank you for the invitation.
Before we begin with the panel discussion, let me quickly set the context. So as seen in the presentation, the Indian pharma industry have shown the resilience despite the supply chain issue, the US generic pricing pressure, the regulatory challenges. In fact, in the last 1 year, it has strengthened its position with easing of US pricing pressure and continued strong domestic demand and stabilization of supply chain. There are newer opportunities emerging for the Indian pharma with sizable patented product going off patent in the US over the next 2 to 3 years, and the passage of the Biosecure Act in the US. In terms of credit profile, as we have seen in the presentation, the credit profile of most of the pharma companies have remained strong, and it expected to remain strong, backed by the steady cash flows and the low reliance on the external debt. With this, let me take views from our esteemed panel members. Let me start with Mr. Ravi Kumar. Mr. Kumar, my first question is, how do you see the opportunity lies ahead for Indian pharma in terms of the CDMO opportunity? As we have been discussing, the passage of the Biosecure Act in US provides a lot of opportunity. So what is your view, and what capabilities that India needs to capitalize on this opportunity?
Yeah, thank you. I think we need to go back during the COVID time. The whole world has understand that they have to find an alternative for China. So they it's not that we can't replace China, but at least we need to have an alternative source from China. That's what the whole world understood very well. And based on that, the people are thinking then China plus one came in. But because of some reasons, even a Biosecure Act has been initiated. We have to see how it is going to be stepped up over a period of time because of the new government change, etc., at the US level. But what we have seen, maybe when we are talking to our peers, and then we also see at our end, is there is a lot of interest coming from big pharma companies. They're looking for the new business opportunities from India. So it's like they're not completely changing from China to India, but the new business opportunities they're starting from India. But there is a good chance that this business is going to grow further in the coming years. But if you look at the whole globe, apart from China, Europe has a good presence, but the kind of they're not expanding their capacities there in Europe, and there are some challenges of the aged population or etc. at the Europe that India has a very bright opportunity. But how we are, your next question is whether India is how well it geared up to capture the opportunities. Yes, the here in India, fortunate or unfortunate, the as we individually we come up individually in life. Similarly, the industry being what to call industry being supported by itself. The companies are growing on their own. They are investing on their own. The government support is there to some extent, but I can say the growth is being envisaged through the internal support of the each individual company. There are certain companies they're gearing up to invest further to capture the maybe new opportunities. For example, we as at Lores, we are investing heavily in anticipation of a business, either the business on hand or business anticipated. We're investing good, but some other companies also investing. There is good opportunities. One actually, one is a capacities, and second thing is on the capabilities. Like for example, certain areas the China is very strong. For example, fermentation based China is very strong presence. Biology is very strong in China. So, but at least for a small molecule is concerned, there is a very bright opportunities for India. I think we have to wait and see. If there is an opportunity comes, people will come and invest. The only thing is like the chicken and egg, whether you want to have a capacity and wait for an opportunity, or if your opportunity comes, you will invest. This is the question. But we are in a sweet spot. I wish the Indian pharma industry is going to capture very well in the when compared to China. But of course, the China business in the CDMO is much larger than what it is in India. In India, is very small at this juncture.
Oh, okay. So do you see the in terms of the opportunity, do you expect a double-digit kind of revenue growth from a CDMO business over the next 1-2 years?
I think possible.
Okay.
Possible.
Oh, okay, great. So with this, let me also invite Mr. Agrawal. Sir, what is your reading with the recent political change in the US and the statement that are coming from the US president there in terms of the tariffs and all? How do you see the challenges for the Indian generic business, especially in terms of the extra tariff, if any, by the government? What is your view on that?
I think one thing is very clear, and which you have made it clear, Naveen has put in his presentation also, that the China is one of the biggest importer of Indian medicine. They are almost 40% is from India, so it's a big volume. So definitely it is something which is a large supplier to them, large manufacturer for them, and definitely it is something which is if US is supposed to put any change in the policy, etc., they have to think through for their people. So I think any tariff increase, because most of the commentaries which are coming now, if you see whether it is CNBC or whether it is other agencies also, Bloomberg and all that, everybody is saying that this tariff increase talk is only for negotiation. It is just a threat. It is not going to be implemented immediately because that will only impact US. It is going to create more inflation there. So according to our reading and so far whatever circumstances which are being there, we don't think this is going to be a major challenge for the industry as such. Industry will continue to grow. Industry will definitely continue to contribute to the US market. And the more and more, as you rightly said, the patent cliff which is going to come in next 2-3 years, that's going to be a big opportunity for the Indian industry. We are well prepared. The number of ANDAs which have been filed by Indian companies is huge. So, and as the chart showed by Naveen, almost 48% share is there in the ANDA approval of US from Indian companies. So if that continues, I think our share of business is going to continue, and these static things, etc., are not going to be a major challenge according to us.
Okay, but sir, in terms of the competition there, I mean, as you mentioned, a lot of Indian companies are gearing up for the future patent cliff opportunities available. How do you see the competition emerging? And because we have seen that last 2-3 years, the pricing pressure there in the US is tough there. Though in the last 1 year it has eased to a certain extent. But what is your view on that competition part, and what could be the pricing pressure that we may encounter going forward?
I think there are two aspects which we need to consider in this particular aspect, because in 22 you have seen a very sharp, price erosion in the US, and all the companies, the pharma companies were all together. Everybody has suffered more than 20% price erosion in that year, and really it was a very bad year, 22-23. But then everybody understood that this is not going to continue. This is something which is, you are just, cutting each other. That's not something which is going to really be beneficial for the industry. Two things are very, very important. One is that how much capability or how much innovation you can do for that market. So if you are talking about just plain vanilla IR tablet, for example, it is not going to work, because then competition is going to be quite tough. But as you go up value chain in terms of the, either the dispersible tablets, or whether it is the set release, etc., or you are going for the complex products, naturally that is something which is going to help you. And that is what I think all the companies are trying to do. And once you are into that category, everybody is creating their own niche. And if that niche is created, I think that competition harming each other is not going to be much. That's what we feel. And second thing which is very clear is that everybody has understood that you just can't, undercut each other. That is a very dangerous game. We have seen it in 22-23, and I think that has been realized by the industry. So they are behaving more sensibly now, and that's what you are seeing the result that in last 1 year it is less than in single digit, which is a very big achievement for the Indian companies. So I think it's not going to be a major cutthroat kind of thing, but yes, you have to compete, you have to be efficient, you have to build your efficiency, you have to be ready for the compliances, because compliance is a very, very important aspect, and I think that is what even Ravi Kumar has pointed out, that that is very, very important aspect of doing business in US.
Okay. So with this, we have discussed about the exports, sir. Let me come to the Mr. Purohit. So, Mr. Purohit, what is your view on the domestic market? How is that business doing for most of the pharma companies? Because that is also one of the very good market for pharma companies to be in. So what is your view on the domestic market, and how is that growth number there? What are the therapies which is doing better than the rest of the market?
So, Kunal, I think the domestic markets are in a very exciting times, and the growth look little robust over here. The drivers are, if you deep dive into the drivers, I think the entire ecosystem which is going through a modification. I think we are into an exciting times. The budgetary support that we had from government this year was close to 90,000 odd crore. Apart from that, the state governments, which are the Ayushman Bharat scheme. Apart from that, the China 1+ strategy. So when you combine entire healthcare ecosystem from a domestic point of view, I think it looks very robust, and as presented, maybe we'll grow at a single high digit number, right? From a therapist perspective, I think the chronic will grow a little more than the acute one, considering the lifestyle changes and all that stuff. Within chronic, I think the anti-diabetic and cardiac looks little more, will fire a lot than others. So I think from a domestic growth consumption point of view, it's very good from your own.
Oh, okay. And in terms of the regulatory challenges or any regulations, hurdles that you face in domestic market, any challenges?
So from top end of the chart, if you ask me, there are a few regulations or regulatory challenges, but I think more or less they'll be impacting to the lower end of the chart. From a quality perspective, we might see a lot of consolidation from here on. But I think from the top end of the chart, they would be more favorable considering the quality stuff. All the top end charts will try and consolidate their position.
Okay, so I mean, SMEs or mid-segment companies may face a bit of a challenge while the large companies continues to grow, and
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so you, as an industry, you don't see much of a problem for the domestic business also. Okay. So Mr. Ravi Kumar, as we were discussing about, I mean, as you also mentioned, China plus one, and India being a sizable importer of the KSM and APIs from China. Do you see that also one such risk area, and what could have been done better to reduce the dependency on China? Because government has introduced PLI for APIs. How effective is that, and what could have been even we can expect more from the government to reduce our dependence on China?
I think the government incentives cannot run the business. So probably they can be a cherry on the cake. The cake has to be, we have to make the cake. So the challenge with this is, China is very dynamic. See, for example, if they want to reduce prices, they can do it maybe immediately. And then probably what we heard is even the government, if they want to support, they can support for an export incentives. So thereby they'll protect the manufacturers. As some of the discussion happened with Arvind, actually the Arvind and Jignesh. So some of the small players, manufacturers, especially intermediate and API manufacturers, they are suffering actually because of the competition. So how we support them, how we can make them to be healthy and survive is the biggest question now for the industry. Okay, the big companies will survive at any cost, so they have the money and or maybe muscle, so they can survive. But the small guys, actually, and I think we all have to see how they can survive. That they are very important for alternative to China. So if like for example, the interest cost has increased in India, that become a detrimental for the small players. They can't pay maybe some of the loans. Then there are banks are coming heavy on them. So they say, so we can't blame the banks. Actually, the banks have to collect the money. But now the China, how to reduce dependence from China? Actually, I think we have to work a lot. But coming to the PLI scheme is introduced for a certain products. What government identified, okay, these are the critical products where we need to have a self-reliance. But this is not applied to all the products. We have to see it we need to take a very pragmatic approach. So I think industry bodies also need to do something to take up with the government. But I think we need to have an holistic. That's what my personal view. It's not an official view, but personal view. But I think as far as the chemistry or maybe manufacturing capabilities are concerned, we are fine. So we are comparable. The only thing is all these need to be addressed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So cost competitiveness, we are still lags in terms of the cost competitiveness largely.
That's correct. Because price is not in your control. The price is driven by the market, right? So ultimately, price will be determined by the supply and demand.
Correct. And plus the economies of scale at which the China operates and at which our facilities are there in India, probably that also economies of scale also plays a role in terms of the cost competitiveness.
Absolutely. And then in China, what we understand is the entire ecosystem is different, right? Like for example, effluent we've been treated by the common effluent treatment plant, and then power being supplied through a common source, steam is supplied with a common source. So in fact, we are also in some of the forums, we requested the government also to create, whenever they develop a pharma park, actually, they can supply all these from the government or the particular nodal agency itself, so that the cost can be optimized.
Correct.
Cost can be optimized.
Okay. So, Mr. Agrawal, in terms of the US exposure, I mean, a lot of companies, India is heavily on the US dominated businesses. So, how do you see the regulatory compliances, and what is your experience in terms of the Indian pharma companies becoming more compliant in terms of regulatory audits and all? And what steps still we could follow to strengthen our regulatory compliances?
I think if you see in last 3 years, even Naveen chat had shown that in last 3 years, the adverse comments or the observations have reduced substantially for the Indian company. What we used to, becoming a fear in the market, like if US FDA inspection is coming, suddenly everybody is, scared and, there is a big fear on that. I think that has reduced quite substantially because all the companies have realized that if they have to be there in that market, they have to fall in line. Fortunately for us, I think I can proudly say that last year, whatever the 2 inspections, I have 2 plants and both were inspected last year. And both of them have come out with 0 in observation. So we are among those 4% in the world in the entire spectrum of US FDA inspection where you are getting 0 observation. So I think we have done quite a lot. The industry has really done quite a lot. Industry has really upgraded their entire ecosystem in terms of whether it is related to the equipments, whether it is related to processes, whether it is related to automation. I think all of them has really gone up substantially. And whenever we talk at the IT level and at the various forums in the industry, I think we are taking definite steps to ensure that this is something which is a common thing for everybody. The entire industry is now gearing up to ensure that the compliances are something which are not compromised at any cost, at any level.
Okay.
The second part of your question, what needs to be done? I think our experience has been very simple. Go to the grassroots and atomize. I think today, practically, my both the plants are 100% automated. So there is absolutely not a single, whether it is QC lab or it is manufacturing, everything is automated. So nobody can tamper with that particular process at any point of time in any way manner. So that is something which is very, very crucial. And I think industry is doing that. There are a lot of people who have really started implementing it. As Ravi Kumar was saying, I think the smaller players have got challenges, no doubt about it. But I think that is where government has to come with some support in terms of assisting them in investing in those technologies, etc., which can really help them to come up to that level.
Okay. And as we also presented in the during our presentation, we have seen that the number of OAI has reduced quite a bit over the last 7-8 years. So to that extent, India is becoming more stringent in terms of compliances. I mean, we follow strict adherence to the all regulatory requirements. Though it may cost little high to the industry because you'll have to incur a capex for those automation and all that. But then people are ready to pay for that kind of additional cost to adhere to the standards.
Yeah, because that is essential. You can't, if you want to do business in US, you need to invest that money.
Correct.
There is no choice. And so either you are there or you are not there. And people have suffered very badly in the past. So they have realized that you need to invest that money if you want to be there in that market.
And one more thing also, people are now filing the product from the different locations so that they also themselves can insulate for any such adverse observation in any of their plant probably. So that is also a new trend that people have started to adopt, that they are filing the product from different locations or different plants.
Absolutely. That is a very good strategy, in fact, and we have adopted that strategy. In fact, quite a few good products we have got approval from both the plants. So that it is basically a de-risking strategy which we are trying to adopt.
Okay. So let me go to the Mr. Purohit. So, sir, what is your view in terms of the growth number for pharma emerging market? I mean, and the regulated market, because we have seen over the last 2-3 years, the emerging markets, Russia and all that, those have unregulated, semi-regulated markets have seen a bit of a higher growth compared to regulated market. And what is your outlook for the let's say next 2-3 years?
I think the emerging market, again, the growth is very decent. I think they'll grow somewhere between 12 to 13%, but the developed economy will be, at a mid-single digit kind of an growth. But it would be more product specific play in those developed market as well. As you pointed out, the growth drivers will typically be those patent cliff products wherein, those which are going off patent and it needs deep pocket to to do that R&D and all. So again, the opportunities will be for that top end of the chart in develop, but we see a lot of traction in the emerging markets because at least at Alchem, the non-US kind of markets have grown at a very very decent pace. So I think the opportunity in non-US market looks good. That is an emerging market looks very very good.
And plus, in terms of the investment, also, if you look at the investment for a non-regulated market and for the regulated market, the difference is also quite large. I mean, from a investment return on investment perspective, probably emerging market looks more attractive compared to regulated market.
Absolutely, and I think and secondly, even India from a quality perspective also, since we already comply with all those US FDA guidelines, right. From quality perspective also we are right up there. So entering into all those emerging market, it's not that it's simple for Indian, and I think the growth is also very very decent there.
Okay, but it would be, as you mentioned, it would be higher than the regulated market. The growth number
Yes,
would be higher.
Certainly, much higher.
Oh, okay. But is there any specific market that you see a significantly better growth rate? I mean, amongst the emerging market, is there any particular market?
Maybe Africa, Chile.
Okay. But how do you then ensure the ability of forex there? Because certain countries we have seen that they have faced a bit of a foreign currency crisis there in local market, and then a lot of pharma companies have also faced a delayed recovery of their receivables and all that. So how do you see that risk?
No, so that risk is there, but we try and associate with kind of top end kind of a distributor over there, which are well established name.
Okay.
So we try and keep ourselves with those distributors.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, sir, let me go to the Ravi Kumar ji. Sir, in terms of the bulk drug or the API export, India is not that competitive, and as we have seen in the presentation also, the growth rate for the API exports have remained lower than the formulation. We are very very strong, while bulk drug and APIs we are yet to make our mark there. So right. What could have been done better, or what we can still do better to enhance our numbers there in APIs and bulk drug?
I think the intermediates and APIs, definitely the intermediates, still China has a strong say, but it's all depends on the product to product. And for example, we are exporting to China, though we are importing intermediates. Actually, we are exporting some APIs, and in fact, in the early cases, we were buying key starting material and we are supplying an advanced intermediate to China. So it's all depends on product to product, but in general, actually, still they're very strong in KSM and intermediates. India is fully depending on that. I think we have to look back maybe 15-20 years back, actually, how India was very strong before China became very prominent in intermediates and chemicals, including Ahmedabad region. Entire Gujarat region actually used to produce a lot of intermediate and chemicals. Now we have to think on that. Unless it is a profitable business, businessmen will never invest. So we have to wait and see how things move. Anyhow, necessity is the mother of invention. People will come when the need comes.
Okay. Great to hear that.
Yeah.
Mr. Arvind, what is your view on the patent cliff? Do you expect this opportunities, because as we present during our presentation, we have presented the opportunities of upward of $100 billion over next 2-3 years. So what could be the India share out of this? What could be the incremental opportunity lies ahead for India?
I think your presentation itself said $3-4 billion, definitely. But I think it's a very large opportunity because if the price erosions are less and if the competition behaves in a very systematic manner, and if we are going through the value chain upside, I think I am sure this is going to be a big opportunity, and all the pharma companies have already filed quite a bit of these ANDAs for all these products which are going operating in next 3 years. In fact, we have almost about 16 or 17 products which are going operating in next 3 years time. So that is something which definitely is going to be the growth driver for all the pharma companies which are operating in US from India.
Okay. So with this, we conclude our panel discussion, but we have a lot of questions from the participants. So we'll take the question from the participants. So our first question we have from the participant is with respect to the availability of the adequate skilled manpower for CDMO opportunity, scientists or PhDs. So Mr. Ravi Kumar, you would like to answer this question. What is your view in terms of the availability of the skilled manpower?
Yeah, it's a good question. That is one of the challenge the entire pharma industry is facing. The people who are graduated or postgraduate from the colleges, they're not directly employable. So, but of course, the current schemes of some of the skill developments are really, we can work it together, maybe in the coming days are concerned. But at the same time, for example, what we are doing is we are recruiting people who are studying MSCs. So with a 3-year three semesters they learn theory, and 4th semester we are taking as an intern, so that actually they will be trained by the time they will get their certificate. And at the same time, we will see them for 6 months, and then if you like them, we will offer them. If they like us, they can join us. So that's how certain things actually we are gearing up. But that is a challenge actually. We have to face it, and then probably some of the trainings we need to increase. We are also taking a driving of maybe small towns, and we are going there and recruiting people from there, giving them a trainings, etc. in all respects. So I think it's a challenge, but it is a manageable challenge. I don't think it's an unmanageable challenge.
Okay. So, sir, we have a question for Mr. Agrawal. Sir, in terms of as you mentioned, there is a lot of opportunity for automation in the plant, which allow us to adhere to the regulatory standards. So, with this latest AI and machine learning, the other things, how do you see that is helping the pharma industry? These advanced technologies?
Quite a lot. Actually, AI now is becoming, of course, it is still, very at a nascent stage. But whatever the projects which we have already implemented, they were based on AI, but not exactly what AI is being pursued now today. But I think slowly it is getting built. In fact, we have now set up a separate function for AI, concentrating only on that particular area, and how I can implement those aspects into every aspect of my manufacturing, quality, and everything. The only challenge which is there is that AI, even today, even though there is a lot of noise, etc., I think it is something which will take some time to come up to the actual implementation level or application in the industry. But it is going to come. That is for sure.
Okay.
In fact, some of the vendors have already started talking to us that there are some advanced versions based on AI which can help us to get much faster results and much better analytical results as compared to what we are doing it today.
Okay. So certainly it is helping the industry to a certain extent, and it would further strengthen.
Yeah, definitely. It is going to help quite a lot to the industry.
Okay. So, sir, we also have a question for Mr. Purohit. So, sir, there's a question that what is the reason for weak growth in domestic formulation market very recently?
So number one is last year there was a higher base. Number two, there's a lot of traction into the trade generics and the Jan Ayushdi. I think both of these trends industry is closely watching. Let's see how it unfolds. But yes, typically, we'll have to see how it unfolds in next coming quarters.
Okay. So that is largely because of the generic or non-branded category of the competition that is hurting to a certain extent.
Yeah. And there was a higher base as well. Last year, I think last year it was 16% growth, and then comparing those base also, it looks little less. But yes, these three were the key drivers for the lower growth.
Okay. But do you expect them to be slightly better going ahead? Because that probably could be one of the months there whereby we may see a weak demand, but then over a period of time it may recover also.
Certainly, it will recover because the entire ecosystem is getting upgraded. So the demand will remain as it is, but we'll see a few challenges in terms of this generic growth and all that stuff. But I think the implications would be in a better sense rather than hurting us.
Okay. Yeah. So we have a last question for today. So the question is from Mr. Agrawal. Sir, there is a question that in terms of the pricing stability, how do you see the APIs and raw material pricing stability for formulation company, and what can we expect going forward?
I think as far as APIs are concerned, at the moment we are quite seeing the stable scenario. There is no much of this one, and also in the near future, we don't think it is going to be a major increase, or there is going to be a challenge on account of the pricing pressure. Because all the implementation of various PLI scheme plants which are coming up now in India should also help to ease the prices. So I think going up of prices is something which looks to be a remote possibility. We expect that the prices should remain in the same range.
Okay. So you don't see much of a challenge for the profitability also as an industry, as an aggregate level.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That's it from our side. Over to you, Mamta.
Thank you, Krunal, for moderating the session, and Naveen for your presentation. Once again, thanking all our guest speakers for their insightful views. It was a privilege to host you. And lastly, thank you to all the participants for taking the time out and being a part of this CareEdge webinar. For any further queries, feedback, or suggestions, please write to us in the feedback mail. Goodbye for now, requesting the tech team to kindly log off.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.